Great. Well, listen, great crowd here. My name's John Clark. I head up product marketing at HERE. But joining me, I have a couple of distinguished guests to talk about the area of connected vehicles. So, Jürgen Reers from Accenture, Winston Cho from HERE Technologies. What I'd like to do, we're going to have about a 10-minute conversation and then open it up to you for any questions. So, let's get started. So, Jürgen, one of the things that's really, in your role, leading the mobility practice at Accenture, talk to us a little bit about the opportunities that connected vehicles, cities, services provide, and potentially what the role of location data is in supporting some of these sort of emerging trends and models.
Yeah. So the interesting part of this is, there's so much data out there, and if you can connect the vehicles out there and with the data that these vehicles are generating with a smart infrastructure, then you can think of and you can implement completely new business models and use cases. Yeah? And this generates a lot of value for several industries, for the automotive industry as such, but also for a number of services industries like insurance companies.
Sounds good. Certainly one of the key ones when you start to combine information from the vehicles with information, say, from the road, from companies like HERE Technologies, with weather information, with behavioral information,
yes.
You start to get into some really interesting use cases when you get into that insurance world, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, taking insurance as a case and as an example here, I mean, we all know that the risk patterns are impacted by the driving patterns, and in former times you fill in form sheets and you give some information about how many miles are you driving, how many vehicles do you have in your household, and so forth. And with a location-based service, with an intelligent routing service, you can basically create a segment of one. You can basically narrow down the risk profile to one particular user, right? And this way you can have also, premium systems that are really, focused to one user, to a segment of one. And this creates a lot of value for insurance companies and also for the users. I mean, those who are opening up their driving patterns and their data can get quite significant discounts on their insurance and can also get some added services.
Sure, and I can imagine that when you look at things like behaviors, fidelity of information becomes critically important, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's not a case of they're on this road, they're driving at this speed, but it's a case of where in the lane they are. Are they in the lane? Are they sort of riding the shoulder, etc.? Winston, talk to us a little bit about some of the attributes that really are critical to, at a high definition level, to support these kinds of use cases.
Yeah, exactly. So if you look at how the sensor data is being collected within the car, right? You either have telematics devices or you have smartphones today where you get GPS traces. So whenever the driver takes a drive, all you get in terms of sensor data is a series of traces. And sometimes the traces are off, right? Just because, for example, in New York City or other cities like Tokyo and others where you've got a lot of high rises, the GPS traces are actually quite far off. So the challenge is to take these traces and to match them to a route network. What route did that driver take? And you need to match that pretty accurately. So you need to have very good map data, right? And to be able to do that matching. But now on top of that, now you need to look at regulations, right? Speed data. You need to look at illegal turns, illegal U-turns. So you really need to understand for the route that the driver took, how risky were they, as Jürgen was saying. And it's all about how did they do a high-speed turn on a curve, right? So you need to know the curvature of the road. So all this data that we provide from the sensors, we need to convert that into insights, which allow a driver's score to be calculated. So we've actually worked with Accenture to provide those capabilities, right? Where they have built an app. That app is used by a driver that has an insurance policy. So whenever they take a drive, it records the GPS traces, and then at the back end, they use our platform capabilities to derive a driver score. And that score allows them to get very, very customized insurance rates.
Fantastic. So talk to me about the level of fidelity that's required to support this.
Yeah, you need to have, for example, you need to also avoid false positives, right? So what the Accenture team told us was like, we really do not want to give the driver a bad score if we're not sure. Right? For example, when they're overtaking, right, you want to make sure that, did they do an illegal overtaking turn, right? Sometimes the precision of the GPS trace is not enough to know whether they did an illegal passing or not. And in that case, they do not include that attribute. So that's why we need to work together with Accenture, because they have the insight as to what are the very detailed use cases that an insurance company wants and what kind of the accuracy of our data, right, that's available. And then find those ones that are very predictable.
Sure. So Jürgen, obviously, you know, your organization has that deep understanding, I think, of the use cases, but this is really across a number of different industries, doesn't it? Like, usage-based insurance is not just about the insurance industry. Talk to me a little bit more about some of the other industries where you see this being applied.
I mean, you have connected services, of course, bringing mobility to an end-to-end stage in cities and to really optimize the traffic flows, right? At the moment, we have a number of modes of mobility or transportation that are not well interconnected. Yeah? And with location-based services, that is very precise and very accurate, I think you can really take mobility to the next level in terms of really making it seamless, taking users from A to B, and to connect, you know, the new modes of transportation, take e-scooters for instance, into last mile concepts to connect them with mass transit, or also ride-hailing in a completely new way. Because, you know, the stats show us that at the moment, new modes like e-scooters add to the complexity in the city, do not really help to reduce other forms of transportation yet, like people using their cars. And, you know, we all see it when we walk around in cities. There's sometimes blocked sidewalks, right? And to optimize mobility as a service from a systems point of view, I think if you can combine very precise location-based data with an intelligent infrastructure and an intelligent cloud backend, and if you combine it with smart analytics, I think you can really get to a breakthrough to reach our goal that we all have, that we make mobility sustainable once again in cities, and really using technology not to restrict people, but to help them to move faster in a more convenient and safe way from A to B.
Totally agree. Yeah. Listen, I want to open up to the audience in just a second here, so maybe one last question before we do that. Winston, you know, this is very promising. Who have we been working with to actually achieve this? You know, are there any companies that have actually implemented this? That are, you know, deriving benefit from it?
Yeah, well, certainly we have worked with, as I was saying, insurance companies generally want to now transform into data-driven service companies, right? And sort of the combined capabilities that we provide in location and mapping data, along with Accenture's capabilities, have actually provided, you know, a lot of insurance companies around the world, right, in terms of deploying these capabilities. So we have integrated our location and mapping data to Accenture's intelligent platform, right? And we have deployed it commercially with some insurance companies.
Okay. Any names or?
The first one that has deployed it is Generali in Italy, one of the leading players in this space.
Fantastic, thank you. Yeah. Any questions? We've got a microphone, so any questions from the audience? Got a few minutes left. Great, thank you.
Great discussion. What about advancements about parking? Big problem in Euro cities as well as incoming cities here in Detroit, or in Detroit and New York and Los Angeles, Las Vegas, for instance. How can HERE and Accenture help us with parking?
Great question.
Yeah. You have any parking use cases?
It's a great question, because this is one of my favorite use cases where I think, I mean, it's thinking about also automated vehicles, right? Where are the use cases that where you have a monetization relatively quickly and also can solve problems that we face in our day-to-day lives is connected parking and also automated parking. Because I think there's a convenience factor. We all have a certain willingness to pay for valet parking services, right? Dropping the car in front of a restaurant, dropping a car in front of an airport terminal, for instance. Yeah? And if you automate the parking function, you can also fit in many more vehicles into a given parking infrastructure, which is a big bottleneck for a lot of mass transit players, because people still use their vehicles for the first mile and for the last mile. And if you can increase the number of vehicles you can fit into a parking infrastructure, then of course you can overcome some of these bottlenecks. And if you have very precise location data, then you can also be much better in terms of
Guiding.
identifying a spot, guiding the vehicle exactly to the spot, making sure the spot is also still unoccupied when you actually get there. So I think it's a perfect use case. Thanks very much for that question.
Yeah, and wasn't just to add to that, any sort of feedback in terms of, obviously some of those environments, that we just heard about can either be indoors or can be in sort of urban canyons, which creates a lot of complexity when we talk about this precision. So.
Yeah, I think that certainly in indoor environments or urban canyon environments, you need to augment the weakness in GPS. There's no GPS indoors, right? With indoor positioning that's powered by Wi-Fi, right? Or in some places even Bluetooth for even higher precision. And then of course nowadays you can also leverage the outdoor Wi-Fi network as well. So we actually have a lot of positioning capabilities that we're leveraging to give us a more, as Jürgen was saying, a more accurate position indoors and also in downtown environments with a lot of high rises.
Great. I think we've probably got time for, I've been told we've got about 2 minutes left. Any other questions? No? Well, listen, what I would suggest is, we heard some questioning about the positioning. There are a number of different, what we call niches around here, certainly as it relates to positioning. I think that's been covered in the connected vehicles section, along with some of the other capabilities that have been employed by Accenture and HERE together.
Yeah, the connected insurance solution that I talked about is being featured in the new vehicle experiences area at the back. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
One final question. We had a conversation a little bit earlier about the sort of the incubator. A lot of development is happening. This is one example of that happens to be sort of co-creation between parties. Talk to me a little bit about what makes a great ecosystem partner from Accenture's perspective and what makes the partnership work with HERE from your perspective.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of startups, there is a lot of specialized players. And I think there's no shortage of ideas, of concept and creative concept. I think the key challenge is to deploy these great ideas at scale in a way that it adds true value. Not only true value from an end user point of view, but also monetary value. And to me, always the key success factor for a partnership is when complementary capabilities come together and you can create really something which is more than the sum of the pieces, right? And I think that's a perfect case where, HERE brings into the partnership their, leading location-based technologies, high-definition routing, and so forth. We can add data analytics, the cloud capabilities that we have to really, operate this at scale. And if we bring this all together, I think we can really take this to the next level. Not just using the sensor data in the vehicle, but really connecting it with the infrastructure. Using very precise and accurate data to locate the vehicles, which can really optimize the use cases and the business models, not in a way of making incremental progress, but really realizing breakthroughs.
Fantastic. Yes, and for anyone that wants to have any follow-up around topics related to this, tomorrow at 10 a.m. we have a conversation with Verizon where we're talking about the use of dashboard-mounted 5G smartphones, turning them into intelligent car sensors. Wow. That's complemented also by another session on Thursday at 10 a.m. with the Global Weather Corporation, so if insurance and understanding sort of road level weather data, from an insurance use case perspective to complement the trip data could be highly applicable. And at 12 o'clock on Thursday, APCO, which was one of the largest parking providers in Europe, will also be on stage here talking about next gen, creating frictionless and safe driver experiences. And I think that talks a lot about that precise precision capability as well. So listen, thank you very much. Really appreciate
Thanks a lot.
it. To both of you.
John.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks a lot. It's a great pleasure.
Yeah.